Hello, welcome to Poetry Today, sponsored by Highland Park Poetry. I'm Lois Barr, I'm your host, and I'll also be reading some poetry, so I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and I live in Riverwoods with my husband Lou. I have a granddaughter who's 7 years old and also writes poetry. And I suppose I could plug my chapbook. You could look on Amazon and find my chapbook, Biopoesis. My guest today is Herb Berman, also from Louisville, Kentucky. He is a retired labor attorney.
No, I am not quite retired.
Well, I was going to say you are currently a labor arbitrator.
Right.
And for our purposes, more important, he leads a poetry workshop at the public library, at the Deerfield Public Library. It is Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. If you'd like to try your poetry on us, you're welcome to come. Herb has published widely. He's published in Drosh, which I will show you. He has published in Falling Star. He's published in Poetica, if you could hand me that. And East on Central. And actually, we've both published for many years in East on Central. So, Herb, would you like to add something to what I've said?
Well, I have little to add. I had started writing poetry as I guess in college, but I reached a kind of crossroads where I had to decide which way I was going to go. And as my father said, and you'll hear some of his sayings later, Herb, I hear there's big money in poetry. So I made a decision to go to law school. Right. And kind of gave up poetry for many, many years, although I continued to read it as an adult. And it was only in my semi-retirement, really, when I was 70. I'm now almost 80. That I kind of went back to poetry, joined a workshop, and started writing. Yeah. And since then, I've been writing rather steadily and have been published. And I'm just too damn lazy to put a book together and get it published. But I have published poetry, I love poetry, and I read it consistently.
Okay. So, and I have to say that Herb is one of the best read poets. And even, okay, I wouldn't reveal age, but he's a little bit older than I am.
I'm almost 80.
And I'm not 70 yet. Okay. But growing up in Louisville, I haven't revealed yet the secret that we are first cousins. And that's actually our theme for today. We're going to be reading poetry about our parents. I would say growing up, we got some of your, since you were a few years older, as your books were cast off, they would come to my house.
That's right, you got all my Oz books.
So I had your Wizard of Oz books.
That's right.
If they were first editions, I'm really embarrassed because I took watercolors and I painted in some of the black and white illustrations. So
merely improves their value, it enhances it.
And I still have your father's anthology of American and British poetry.
Ah.
So that really, I think books were a very big part of both of our households, very important to us growing up.
Yes. My parents were readers. They weren't serious readers. They weren't that, well, they were reasonably well educated for the day, but they were readers. They had a shelf of books in the living room, and I went through, I think, every one of those books before I hit college, I'm sure. Yeah. And they certainly instructed my reading and informed it in great ways.
Yeah.
My mother loved poetry, by the way. My father was kind of tone deaf and didn't enjoy it much.
Do you remember anything in particular she would read to you?
Oh, my goodness, yes. She loved Robert Service. If anybody remembers Robert Service, the Yukon poet, she loved Kipling, she read Frost, she read, I think, all the Kipling Just So stories. And as we were getting old, as I was getting, well, we were both getting older, As I was getting older, we would read together. And I would read a poem, she would read a poem, and I think that was great instruction. She didn't mean it as instruction, it was just fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And my father read the Wall Street Journal and the, the newspaper and material of that sort, which was good.
Okay, so I thought before we started, I would show our common great-grandfather, if you can get that on the camera, from Europe, from the Pale of Settlement in Russia, Grudna Berman, perhaps. I don't know that I'm all that well versed on my ancestry. Does that show up well? Okay. And Herb, if you would start us off with All Our Dead.
Okay.
All My Dead.
It's a poem I wrote fairly recently, and it's entitled All My Dead. I owe it to all my dead, the dead who seeded unknown tomorrows. I hear them sing, some in tongues deader than last night's unremembered dreams. There they lie at rest, having broadcast imperishable genes across an ocean of time. My namesake, Herzl Halevi, settled deep in my gut, my bones, foretold my beginning, my end.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And it's kind of amazing that we ended up in the same area and ended up in the same poetry workshop. And I came to poetry very late also, a lot later than you, really. And so, but
Later
I think,
than 70?
but I think that, I wonder back in the shtetl what it was that had that poetry. We'll never know.
No, no.
I do know that my great-grandfather was a Torah scribe, so perhaps there's something in that.
I have no idea. I know that whatever literary talent I have, how minimal or how great I don't know, came from the Barr side of the family, not from the Berman side of the family. Yes, her side of the family.
Okay, so I thought we would start with our mothers. It's always our mothers. And I remember your mother, and this is your mother holding me as an infant. She was my Aunt Sissy, Frida Berman, and she was vivacious and generous, and I always wanted to open her Hanukkah presents first. I remember a blue Angora sweater with bright gold buttons. It was probably the prettiest sweater I ever owned. And she spoiled us, and she was very gracious in that she would allow me to to touch all the French porcelain shepherds and shepherdesses that she had in her bedroom. The beautiful, they're probably
yes.
Antiques.
Oh, yes, I'm sure they were.
Well, I was on very good behavior because your house was very fancy to our family, and so I was always told I had to be on my best behavior.
I wasn't. Somebody had to be.
Well, somebody had to be. And then this is, while you're reading the poem, Her Song, Her Dance, I'm going to hold this gorgeous picture, if you can get this picture of his mom.
Her Song, Her Dance, which is in memory of my mother who died too young. She was soft red kisses, lilac wind and honey song. When she sang, crickets danced and hummingbirds hummed along. Death is cruel, I know, but life has its measure. Crickets a summer, hummingbirds a longer lease. Soon enough, honey in the hive will dry, every dancer flag. She sang a spring and summer song, bright as April dawn, an echo in the midnight of deep, dim dreams.
Oh. And, and your mother, when I think of honey, I think of, at your house, I think of good, sweet food and gracious parties and honey. That image of the honey just stands out for me.
Because her granddaughter, Margie, my niece, called her Grandma Honey.
Yeah,
And she was a delightful woman. She was sweet and kind and much too indulgent.
Yeah. You said that she indulged you.
She was very indulgent to her son. Yeah, probably to a fault, but I guess I survived somehow.
So, and then she was the older of the family. I don't know if you can get this picture, but your mom is the tallest woman here, and my dad is the baby down here. He was the oops. Did you get it?
There you go.
Okay.
I should say
Excellent.
a few words, if you want,
Please,
about
please.
your parents.
Talk about
Your mother or father,
okay,
either one.
Okay, either go for it.
Well, of course, your father, who was 14 years my senior, as a young uncle, was a role model for me growing up. And he was, I think, my coach when I played high school baseball and basketball. And he was a role model. In fact, I clerked in his office. I clerked in his law office when I was in law school. So your father was an inspiration. Your mother, I met your mother when, obviously, she came back to Louisville with your father, and she was a delightful woman. She was just wonderful. She was open and warm. Everything you said about my mother really goes for your mother as well.
Uh-oh, we're getting too sweet.
No, we are getting too sentimental, I'm sure.
She's in the bottom row there if you want to get my
It's
mother
hard
on camera.
It's hard for me not to be sentimental about somebody I love.
Yeah,
She was a
I know.
delightful woman and talented besides, a fine pianist, which I would sit at times when I went to their house, to your house, and just listen to her play Beethoven, as I recall particularly. Moonlight Sonata just stands out of my mind. So, I have nothing negative to say. If this were a talk show, they'd kick me off.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's, I remember going to the Standard Club when
Yes.
we would go visit. We would be the relations who were taken to the Standard Club, and your mom was a golfer. So would you read the poem?
Yes, I should let you know that, well, you'll figure it out. It's called Yahrzeit, for a mother who loved to play golf with her son, and Yahrzeit is simply Yiddish for anniversary, and refers to the day on which a person is, especially a loved one, has died. And on the day of Yahrzeit, there are prayers and customs, including a 24-hour candle to honor the memory of the departed person. Anyway, Yahrzeit for a mother who loved to play golf with her son. So many years a ghost, stuffed in the pocket of my dreams, stirring up the lint of apology. I didn't mean, I never wanted. She laughed. You lie three? Guess I'm skunked again. And her guileless heart broke, a gush of blood in her chest. A smothered spark flickers like yesterday's regrets. My pockets are full, the lint of remorse. No room for sorry. Sorrow like a soft summer wind sighs through a song, a prayer of mourning, searching for a mourner. And I'm there, still there, lying three on the 18th green.
Yeah. I have a very vivid image that I associate with your mother's death of a willow tree that was hit by lightning by your house.
That's right, it was.
And I don't know if it happened close to your mother's death but somehow I associate that.
I remember it vividly, actually.
Yeah.
It was a week before my mother died.
Yeah. And so it was obviously a very big loss for our family. I wanted to read something about my mother.
Yes, let's turn to your family.
Okay. And this was published in East on Central. And I'll read it from here. You could hold up East on Central. We'll give them a plug. And it's called Wishbone. Okay. Oh. Fingers sticky with matzo meal and egg form another orb dropped into the pot that sinks, then bobs to the top, simmers with a dozen balls in eddies of fat. You wipe the sweat from your upper lip, leave a smudge of dough on your cheek, cover the pot, rinse your hands, look at the clock, and light a smoke. You wield screwdriver and hammer, shovel and red clay, pull tomatoes ripe and juicy from vines. Fingers reach octaves, feet barely touch the pedals. Curses echo on the fallboard when you flub an arpeggio. At 30 you learn to drive, and at a moment's notice we're off. A bag of rainbow bread in your fist, we clamber downhill. Swans, ducks, geese form welcome committees. You lead us to the secret cave at Cave Hill Cemetery. Vines of white and yellow blooms, you leave the green cap, pull stamens slowly out the back, drops of nectar fall on my lips. You'll catch more flies with honey, you always say, but your tongue lashes my critics. You teach me names of birds and flowers, but never how to iron or sew. Simmering chicken permeates the house, your hands slick from pulling meat from bones, wiping the slender triangle of bone on your apron, you extend one side. Our thumbs touch the apex. We tug. Crack. I get the bigger side. I get the wish. I always got the wish. Now I wish you'd gotten more wishes. I think we better get to our fathers.
I think we better, yes. We don't want to leave them out.
So, your father kind of frightened me. He was bigger than life. I remember big brown eyes and a little bit austere sometimes. I remember big cigars. And did he have a big ring with a blue stone?
Absolutely, the blue sapphire.
Blue sapphire.
My sister now has it.
Okay. Okay,
Blue Star
and I
Sapphire.
remembered that. And so, would you read? Let's see, the next song by your father. Okay, yes, Father Home from the Office. Thank you.
You're welcome. Father Home from the Office. It's the liquor and cigars, Herb. Synergistic and failure. I'm very sorry. Dr. Sherwin Kaplan. English leather soap. Cigars and gin, his martinis clean and dry. Tanqueray a whiff of martini and Rossi, and Cohiba Corona Especiales. The best, always spend a bit more for the best. Never saw him drunk, even tipsy. Never heard him raise his voice or curse. He commanded, some say intimidated, with a look. But my mother just laughed. He's just a big old pussycat. He never played ball with me, though he watched me at shortstop in high school. Once I booted a ball, let in the winning run. Don't worry, Herb, a little error, hardly your last. Home at 6, shower, shaved, newly pressed soft wool pants, a long-sleeved silk, an Egyptian cotton shirt, a solka or some bespoke brand. His deep leather chair, mother bringing him a martini or two with a snack, maybe tidbits of Stilton, aged hard salami, dried oysters, plump salted cashews. Comfy, Robert? Yes, as always. Thank you. They always locked eyes for a minute. Then a Cohiba Corona, the Louisville Times, a pungent puff of smoke, a welcome sip, a smile.
Oh my gosh. Gee, I think I inherited the love of martinis from your father.
So did I.
Oh, that's funny. And you, let's see. I wanted to read the songs my father sang. So, do you remember my father and mother singing?
Oh, absolutely. Of course. How could I forget? Every time we came to your house, it was like going to a musical comedy. It was, well, Yes, to a degree, but it was fun.
Yeah.
They sang and danced.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and when we would take car trips and friends would come along, they would, we'd be halfway to our destination and they'd say, don't they ever stop singing? So,
It's not a bad way to live, singing through life.
yeah. So this is Songs My Father Sang for Eddie Barr, 1922 to 2008. And then I guess we should show.
Shall I hold up, Eddie?
Yeah. Long ago, I found his love letters to Mom from Key Air Base, Meridian, Mississippi. Mechanics, he wrote, cursed him. Damn college boy didn't know a wrench from a hammer. But Grumman goblins didn't fly without his okay. At night, he wrote, played records, Benny Goodman, Peggy Lee, tried Mozart to please Mom. Pack up all your cares and woe. A hazy blue sky filters through maple and oak. Dad leaps from rock to rock. The ledge drops off to Beargrass Creek far below. We follow. Bluer than velvet was the night. Softer than satin was the light. I'm 12. Dad hands me a cobalt blue jar of strong-smelling white cream. Wash your face with scalding hot water. Rinse with ice cold. This nightly ritual to spare me his teenage scars of acne. Summertime and the living is easy. I'm 15, Dad's assistant, cruising downtown in his blue Nash Rambler, ashtray overflowing with stubbed-out cigars. In the back seat, legal pads, files, tennis balls. We stop for breakfast at Cupie's. Blue-gray smoke floats above lawyers' heads, blends with bacon grease and gossip. I once had a gown. It was almost new. Oh, the daintiest thing, it was sweet Alice blue. Bride of a year, here's my dad in a hospital gown. 6 bypasses and a pacemaker, scars on his chest and legs. He'll be blue for a while. Blue moon, I saw you dancing alone. Blue-veined hands struggled to open bottles of Aricept and nitroglycerin. My daughter, a bride-to-be. I find him in bed, his skin as white as the hotel sheets, his lips gray. Ah, yes, I remember it well. Dad grins, plays games, repeats quips, forgets his address but not our names. Mom buys him baby blue shirts, babies him, scolds when he hangs stained shirts in the closet. Sometimes she sings along when he hums. After Mom dies, the box of love letters is gone. On my shelf, a book of Dad's poems, a string from King David's harp. So,
Thanks, Lois. That was a good one. I like that a lot.
thank you. I thought, okay, it would be interesting to hear some of the things you remember that your father said to you.
Okay.
If you want to do that.
Well, sure. And I actually wrote something, not in the form of a poem, but just in form of
Okay.
Scattered sayings, and I call it sayings. And I'll read some of them. I got a whole list.
Okay.
The ones I like the best.
Okay.
If you can find a good restaurant, you'll never go hungry. People are honest unless it's inconvenient. Don't lie. Lies are too hard to remember. I probably shouldn't say this, so I'll skip the next one. If you loan money to a friend, it's a gift. Don't stand on dignity. It's a long way down. Doctors forget, lawyers forget, they never forget to send a bill. Never trust a politician, but then, aren't we all politicians? Drink with a Democrat. Democrats pour, Republicans measure. What do you see in the mirror? Are you sure that's you? If a man whispers in your ear, it's a sure bet. hold on to your wallet. Maybe a rich man can't get to heaven. I'll take my chances. What if that rainy day never comes? Think of all the fun you missed. I don't mind dying, I just don't want to be dead. Please tell Manny Myers, the Jewish funeral home director, that the gold in my teeth isn't real. Never own a racehorse. Win or lose, they eat and shit. A good woman is the only thing between you and nothing. Love your mother. She'd die for you. If 2 plus 2 isn't 4, you have a great accountant. Is that enough?
Oh, those are great. Those are great. So you really inspired me when I read those, and I started thinking about the things my mother said. So I wrote this poem, Mother Tongue. She and her sister sprinkled Yiddish into their chatter when they were head to head over cigarettes and coffee. Stunk, schmegegi, schmutzig. Come New Year's Eve, they'd pour themselves a bourbon, stamp on the floor and yell, Mr. Wilcox, Gunavim! And laugh till tears rolled down their cheeks. I longed to hear her voice on the phone. Hi, honey. Oh, how the long eye could linger without being long. Put your clothes out the night before. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. Put your shoes on, Lucy. Put up or shut up. Put yourself out for your friends. Don't go putting on airs. When we were good, we were sweetie pie, honey, smart cookie. If we were sassy, smart Alex, her tongue cut switchblade quick. She worked Sunday crosswords in a flash, returned to college at 50, aced French. Dad's caregiver in her dotage, she often felt slighted. What am I? Chopped liver? Then her bones betrayed her. She shrank to 4 feet 6. Brittle, bent, and broken, she still played her baby grand. She still led pool aerobics in summer, chair exercise with condo cronies in winter. When they complained about illness, she'd command, stop the organ recital. To Dad's dementia, her bon mot sparkled like newly minted coins. So I thought it would be nice to have your poem, well, I think we'll probably go out on this, Why Do the Dead? I think that would be
Okay.
a good poem to read here.
Why do the dead? Why do the dead decline to die, refuse to dwindle into mercy and dust, merge into forever? Yesterday a shadow, tomorrow the memory of today's bright hope. Let yesterday be silent, today slide past, tomorrow stomp and shout. It's December, the shining ice, small solace for this dark horizon.
Oh, wow, that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and very appropriate at this time of the year. Very nice. So I guess we have time. I'll read this fortune cookie, which is very, very fast. It's called Still Life on Formica Counter in memory of Edwin Barr. You will live surrounded by loved ones, his fortune cookie lied that Monday night at the Empress of China. 8 a.m. Tuesday, my brother found the open jar of peanut butter next to the nitroglycerin, next to the clean knife, next to a slice of bread, immaculately white. So I'd like to thank you, Herb. We probably have enough poems for a whole other program.
Well, sure. I mean, I've written